Welcome to the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations. I bring over 40 years experience in the world of comic books and entertainment. Across 5 decades, I offer insights and opinions on the business and the art of comic books and pop culture. If it's happening in games, in streaming, in movies, in comic books, we are covering it and discussing it right here. Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition, an all-new edition of the Rob Liefeld Show featuring Robservations, the show with 2 titles, because on podcast platforms we're Robservations, and here on YouTube, if you're watching us on video, we are the Rob Liefeld Show. So, been doing this 482, about to be 483 episodes, and I couldn't have done it without all of you. Thank you for listening, wherever you are listening, wherever you are tuning in and joining us, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, or YouTube. We are so thankful to have you guys on board. I have spent my entire adult life making comic books. At 58 years old, I am still making comic books. I love to talk about comic books, the impact that comic books has had on the culture, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of kind of talk shows, talk radio I listen to. And as I have been able to mention many times before, the hosts that I always feel like I get the most out of are the ones who have actually been in the business. Everybody is free to critique and offer opinions. And I listen to a lot of shows where people who have nothing to do with playing games or making content comment on it. Those are fun. All opinions are welcome. The specialty that we offer you in this show is that I have been behind so many comic books, that I have been behind so many different productions. I have been involved in development and making of movies, of shows, of cartoons, of video games, and of comic books. And I love to share all of that history, all of those stories with you. One of the funnest topics that we were doing there for quite some time, and I couldn't believe that when I looked at the last year's worth of updates, the last year's worth of shows, I cannot believe it has been over a year since we did one of our calendar shows. We have them under an umbrella. If you were to do a search right now, you'd look at decades, and it'll say the decades: 1978, 1979. We've done 1988. We've done 1989. We've done all sorts of different years, and when we do that, we collate and share the music and the movies, the shows, and the comic books that really defined that particular year. It's called the decades because we've got 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s in there. I think there's 2012, 2010. I've tried to put them all under this giant umbrella called the decades. So if you ever want to go back and listen and search, and we are getting a lot of new listeners. I appreciate you guys reach out. You share with me that you've just discovered the show and you're going through the back catalog. Welcome. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Today, we got a great year. We've talked a lot about this year and other different facets, but 1996 is our particular year that we're going to put under the microscope today and look at all the various different ways that we were entertained, whether it was what we were watching on television, what we were going to do in the theaters, what we were blasting on our radios, yes, we still had boom boxes, and what we were reading and enjoying in the world of comic books. This show will always shine the spotlight on creators, and we've got some fun stuff from creators today, especially in regards to one of the events of 1996, and it is such a blast to look back on the past. There's always lessons to be learned. There's always memories to be explored, and you get those feelings again, and they motivate. They motivate going back and looking, because for me, 1996, I'm 29 years old. It is a really fun year, a very chaotic year for me personally in the business, and we'll cover some of that because I was not prepared that in these year ends, I really wasn't. I knew that some of the work that I had done at the time would have been mentioned, but I didn't know it was literally the spotlight of the year's ends, no matter what the magazines that were covering comic books at the time. But there was so much more than those stories, and we're going to cover all that stuff and really kind of put it in this big giant pop culture stew. Look back, and the truth of the matter is, as I looked back, 1996 is, in cinema, it's a breakout year. It is a year of brand new stars. It is a year of a ton of fresh talent finding their footing, exploding further onto the scene. It is some. There's a bunch of talent that it is their sophomore efforts, and those sophomore efforts are getting them the biggest spotlights. And you'll see as we go over that. In the world of comic books, the 90s were kind of coming to a slow halt. We've covered it before, and I'll just go into the fact that 1995 it wasn't so much when the wheels came off, but it was certainly when the gears were grinding heavier than they had ground. The distribution wars were happening. Image and DC Comics signed a distribution deal with Diamond as Capital City had fallen apart in 1995, and it changed the course of the comic book industry. Marvel went all in with a untested third distributor that was located in the East Coast, and they decided that they would make that their hub, their exclusive hub, with which they would service the greater comic book community. And Dark Horse then signed with Diamond. Capital was left with no one, sadly, except a ton of debt that they were being crushed under, and we've covered that here. Retailers were struggling. The number one difference, the biggest difference, the most glaring difference between now in 2025 and what was going on in 1995 leading into 1996 is the amount of outlets that you could move and sell comics with. eBay wasn't happening yet. Online didn't exist other than a few message boards. Maybe some people were trading some copies, but nothing in mass. Nothing like we're seeing with eBay Live, with Whatnot, with TikTok has a live streaming service. Social media has really connected us and, given a global marketplace to you in your living room. It's given a global marketplace. I have done 3.5 years on my live stream Whatnot. I'm Rob Liefeld. You're going to want to join me as this is the week, just sidebar, that my brand new Youngblood #1 comes out. Now, Youngblood #1 is coming out Wednesday, November 12th, a few days after this episode goes live. You're going to want to get to your store early in case you have your eyes on that Daniel Warren Johnson, maybe this Daniel Warren Johnson cover. Got it right here. Or if you have, if you fancy yourself grabbing maybe the, let's see, what do we got here? Grabbing the Scotty Young cover, which I have right here. You're going to want to get to the stores. You're going to want to get there early because we had to put out a notice that the book is sold out. What that means is we were getting notifications from the distributor, and I actually got a question online this morning that I want to talk to you guys about, because any way that we can expand and answer some of your questions in mass, this is a great place to do it. Guy said, why is the book sold out? Why didn't you print more? So we offer the book in a catalog, and retailers then pen, send in via online. They commit to their orders. Maybe your store ordered 25 Youngblood copies. That's what they felt that they could sell, or your store ordered 100. I know that there was many hundreds of accounts ordered over 100. They were very aggressive in this book. They took a big position, and many stores had faith in this product. They looks like that they had put some real thought into what their customers wanted. Whatever happened, as the date got closer, the fan base, the interest was made known. And what happens is a retailer then goes, hey man, you know what? I'm hearing it from my customers. I'm not certain I have enough. They go on a gut instinct. They put in an order. It transfers to the distributor. The distributor will either have it or doesn't have it. Let's say you want more of Rob Liefeld cover A. Cover A's are generally the covers that people want the most. These happen to be polybagged with a trading card in it, just like X-Force #1, except in X-Force #1 you could see the card. The printer put the card behind a cardboard placard here. This was a decision that I completely approve of, but I was not aware of. I had a lot going on, and that was not the process of assembling the books with the bags actually delayed the book a week, and I wasn't involved in that, but it makes it a little more of a chase to get all 6 cards. There's one chrome card. I don't want this to be a commercial. I know it's turning into one, but I'm trying to explain to you. What happened is people wanted more of cover A. They wanted more of Scotty Young. They wanted more of Daniel Warren Johnson. They wanted more of each and every one of the covers. What then it reads as sold out, sold out, sold out. We overprinted to a degree, but if you go crazy with the overprints, then what you do is you wipe out all your profits, and the money that the book makes goes directly into the next book. Youngblood, as it hits the stands, is nearly we're way past 175,000 units on this book, because this book was sold direct to consumer in a kind of a new approach that I have to sharing my comics with the masses. This book, we started selling this online via my website and via the live streams like eBay, like whatnot. We started doing that back in April. What we're now doing is bringing a mass market edition. I changed it up a little. I changed some pages so as to preserve the direct to market experience, and yet still have a fulfilling, a great. None of the word balloons have been changed. None of the story in content has been changed, but some of the shots and the pictures have been changed. I did that deliberately to make kind of a different process. I said from the beginning that when I released Youngblood, it was going to be a new form of platform release. This last couple of weeks, I've been reading how movies, Begonia, that I really enjoyed, was a slow rollout to a few theaters on both coasts, East Coast, West Coast, LA, New York, and then it went wide. Right now, the new Sydney Sweeney biopic about the boxer, the Christie, was rolled out in a platform release. And what you do is you kind of test the waters. You get it out there. You see if people want it. This is how so many, going back to the very first Elizabeth movie, those movies are put out in a limited release. Boogie Nights, all the way back, so many different movies. Joy and I would have to drive out of town, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, to see a movie before it got to our city, and it depended on how much we wanted to see it. And that was certainly the case with Wind River. I mentioned Wind River, the Taylor Sheridan written and directed movie. I remember that summer it came out. It was a platform release. It was in a few theaters for 2 weeks, and then it went wide. We didn't want to wait for it to go wide, and we knew that if we drove 45 minutes to Los Angeles, we could plop down and see it when we wanted to see it. So this stuff is different. It is available per platform releases. With Youngblood, we went to a platform release. We went to direct to consumer via an online component first, a few comic books store signings, and a few convention editions. As we now go mass market, we have really surprised. I've been surprised. I am surprised at the amount of interest and the sales that Youngblood has achieved. But those books on the shelves of your store the day that they come out on November 12th will be pretty much the only books your store gets, unless they were one of the very early adopters and got their orders in early. This is something that I was hearing just a week after the orders came in. When I asked Image Comics to check into it, they said, yes, Rob, these are all sold through. One of these covers has over 3,000. It was the cover A, had over 3,000 back orders 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before it was hitting. So when this book comes out, pretty much what is on the shelves will be what is available on the shelf. We are already going to we are soliciting a second print that your order will have, that your store will be putting in. They will be putting in for the second edition, the second print of Youngblood #1 in order to facilitate and get more copies out there before Youngblood #1 actually goes on sale. So we've got some significant demand here, and we are able to facilitate that demand. In this instance, it's a book that's likely not going to sit on shelves and collect dust. But in the 90s, if there were a book, a comic, especially let's go to The Return of Superman, which was grossly overordered, grossly oversold by the same people who told everybody, these stores after stores, Time has a way of wiping this stuff out. Good luck finding this online, because the Brandon Ruth movie was called Superman Returns. When you Google Superman Returns, which is what the event post after Superman died, and then they were finally bringing him back. It was called Superman Returns. Those articles are buried. They're dead and gone. What they used to be was full of retailers who were like, "Hey, this didn't do as well for me." I did an episode where I was able to hunt down and find a couple of retail comments that dealt with the fact that Superman Returns was nowhere near the same impact as Superman, the death of Superman. And we all know that killing a character and bringing a character back summons two different emotions. The killing of a character, upsets people. The return of a character is kind of the antithesis of the death, because you're like, what do you mean he's returning? I thought he was dead. Return of Superman, especially in Orange County, the week that came out as a partner in Image Comics during that period, I was like, oh man, this is not good for the business. When I told you about the global aspect and the marketplace and how it's expanded via the internet and our social medias, you would have been able to go online, maybe bundle that book with some other Superman books and sell that all over the world. Maybe you would have contacted the artist, had them sign 100 or 200 copies, been able to move more copies of the book with the signature, with possibly an upgraded price, even a couple bucks. And you would have been able to clean out the inventory because you were selling to a global marketplace. The comic book stores that were in the 90s were limited to the parking lot in front of them. The few visitors that would drive on through, and the tourists that would check the stores out, and then the just your regular customers. You weren't able to expand instantly overnight as you are now. You are able to go online. I'm going to go back to Youngblood right now as I prepare to, as we're leading up to the actual release of Youngblood, which I'm very excited by. Part of my energy that I'm summoning is I'm very excited by the release of Youngblood. And I was sent by a couple of retailers, hey, Rob, this cover is selling for $100. There is let me see if I have it. I don't think I do. It's called the Thank You variant, and it is currently multiple copies. Midtown Comics was the first to sell, but we have blown out of this Thank You edition. I sure do have a copy. It's right here. The Youngblood Thank You edition. We gave one per store. We gave this specific comic, which all weekend long I've been given alerts. I checked myself. It's going for $100. 6 of these, as I record this, 6 of these have sold unsigned, not from me, from different stores all around the country. That's because of the interconnectivity of the internet, the eBay factor, the whatnot factor. I keep saying global marketplace, selling around the world. Hey, sometimes it's the guy in Montana wants what the guy in New York has. It's within the 50 states. That is the number one difference that would have changed all of the ways that the businesses were run in the 90s, and the troubles facing the stores who were limited to just their location, their parking lot, the people that attended it. Chuck Rosansky, he of the world famous Mile High Comics expansion store, had his first expansion store out of outside of Denver. He did that by then I'll be doing something great. I'll be getting close to all manner of tourists. He wanted that tourists. He thought that they would drive his that would drive his business. And over time he had to shutter. He had to, over a decade, he closed his store, said goodbye, because he said, Rob, that wasn't enough. Even the tourists, even that traffic wasn't enough. But the online component, and no one should know better than Chuck Rosansky, Mile High Comics, because he had full page ads, sometimes double page ads in the comic books growing up. Mail order. You could mail in, write down what you want, mail it in, he'd fulfill it, send it back to you. Now it's in an instant. Buy it now, buy it now, buy it now, buy it now is the world we live in. And it would have radically reshaped the comic book landscape. I think business would have stayed alive. Different labels would have done much better than they did. You just got an entirely different marketplace now. And the reason I bring up Youngblood so much is I launched this book with a global marketplace and interconnectivity in regards to the platforms that social media and online provide. But 1996 was dealing with 1996 problems. And the new landscape, which found Marvel distributing itself through an outlet called Heroes World, and DC and Image and Dark Horse in a brave new coalition with Diamond Comics, we were all kind of in the same boat, or a couple of different boats, trying to navigate the business. Youngblood's out November 12th. If I didn't already mention that, forgive me, I'm excited. When we look back at the year, in this incredible year that was 1996 in comic books, and we look back and we review, the year started off really strong. The year actually was was highlighted by the year was highlighted by the Marvel and DC amalgam crossovers. That is what was driving so much of the interest. Marvel versus DC was happening, and the Marvel versus DC amalgam was first quarter. It was just a really fun time where these crossovers that you didn't think were going to happen were happening. And that was a perfect kickoff. It was a great form of support. You can go month by month here, and you can pick this all out yourself. And by January and February, your amalgam books were shipping. And if you haven't been familiar with amalgam, I think they produced. I know they collected them in trade before, and I think they're putting out all new editions of them now. When we first started the show, I called all these topics forbidden fruits, because Micronauts, the entire Micronauts line of comics, hadn't been collected in over 40 years. Neither had ROM, neither had the Marvel Godzilla. It's not in color. They had a black and white only edition about 20 years back, maybe 15 years back. Since we started the show, all of these things have now happened. Marvel and DC hadn't teamed up in almost 2 decades. Boom, they're doing it again. All of these things have come back and roared back. January, February, we get our amalgam events. That was a big deal in stores. We're thrilled to have those. Marvel versus DC, as I said, was a giant event book that was done by each. There was Dan Jurgens, Claudio Castellini, shared art chores. It was really interesting, especially knowing that Jim Lee and I were going to be part of the big Marvel reboot at the end of 1996. I was paying a lot of attention to everything that was going on outside of us, without of us. Okay, now I'm just making up phrases. Everything that was going on that we weren't directly involved in, but was bolstering the Marvel signal, we were acutely interested in and acutely paying attention to in so much as it would affect what was going on with us. And it was all marching towards one big event that was going to set up Heroes Reborn, and that event was Onslaught. So Onslaught was setting up what was coming with Heroes Reborn. And Onslaught was a big, giant X-Men event, Marvel event, that would help establish all that was coming in regards to the big changes, given that for the very first time ever, Captain America, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man were being outsourced to myself and Jim Lee via our respective studios, Wildstorm and Extreme, although it really was being outsourced to Jim Lee and to Rob Liefeld. I've covered it before. This was they did a good job of keeping the anxiety from Marvel away from the press within the halls of Marvel. And now if you go and you see some of these guys give their interviews, like the Ralph Macchio, who's now back on the convention circuit, and he's doing panels, and he talks about how upsetting it was, and he talks about how they thought it was a really bad idea. We were let the people who were cutting the deals from us that were representing Marvel, the president of Marvel and the publisher of Marvel, who sought Jim and I out, and who cut those deals with us. No reason in telling this to you unless I can shine maybe some new light on this, and I haven't really heavily addressed it in years in regards to the dedicated episodes on Heroes Reborn. There's some real they're chock full of fun and tons of intricate details. I'd encourage you hunting those down, listen to those Heroes Reborn episodes. But what was made very clear to us from the publisher of Marvel and the president of Marvel was how much the current Marvel, the Marvel publishing offices in New York, were threatened by, upset by, and angered by, very much angered by the fact that they believed that this was a necessary move. The thought again was the X-Men and Spider-Man were doing fine, but Captain America, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man had been really falling in the charts, and they felt like one of the things they could do in order to launch not only aligning with DC for Amalgam and Marvel versus DC, but then this big onslaught event, which would be created by editorial to facilitate what we were doing with the big flagship titles. These were the Stan and Jack jewels, the ones that kicked off the comic book, the Marvel comics that we know and love. Fantastic Four, the flagship of all flagships. Yes, Spider-Man's more popular, but Fantastic Four is the one that got the job done first. Avengers followed a year later, big deal, the big the big team up book with all the solo characters coming together: Thor, Iron Man, Cap, Hulk, eventually Cap, and then you had Iron Man and Captain America. Captain America, one of the oldest characters going back to before Marvel with Timely. So Marvel would in fact inherit Joe Simon and Jack Kirby's Captain America. I was only interested in this if I was going to do Captain America. They had come to us in early 1995 when word of this reached Marvel. Ralph Macchio, which is why I'm mentioning him, and he was at the convention that's in Connecticut in late summer. It's at the Mohegan Sun. Is it Terrificon? He was at Terrificon, and I listened to they recorded his panels that he had given, and he referred to this period, and he was in fact very invested in trying to prove them wrong. Give me a year. Let me see if I can put a brand new creative team on this and change the trajectory myself, which is why Mark Grunwald was dismissed, who had been the longest running tenured writer on the book in decades. And they were good friends. When I broke into the business, Mark Grunwald and Ralph Macchio were a writing team. They wrote Marvel 2-in-1 featuring The Thing. And if you've ever heard us mention the Project Pegasus, which had John Byrne and George Perez on art chores, or if you've heard us mention the Serpent Crown Affair here, Ralph and Mark combined to write together some of the best comic book events of the Bronze Age. And they always had either Perez or John Byrne working alongside of them. And those guys are picky. They could have said no. They loved those stories because those stories were that good. And we in fandom just relished in drinking those up. Well, Ralph was now the editor of his friend and had to go to his friend and say, hey, do me a solid, move away, move off this, and I'm going to put Mark Waid, who had some buzz from The Flash, and he was doing the big DC event crossover. And then Ron Garney, who had been an artist that had been bumping around the same time that I broke in. And he decided we will do this bold new adventure, this bold attempt at rebooting Captain America and showing you that you didn't need the reboot. So this is a move. So while I'm signing the contract and preparing in 1996, I'm having this aggressive, and I applaud them. Good for them. Can't say that I wouldn't have done the exact same thing. They were fighting to keep their jobs. Now, this wasn't the case with Fantastic Four, Iron Man, and Avengers, which had seemingly thrown in the towels. All these books were doing about 25,000 in sales. Cap would not move. Cap did not move. Maybe the last issue went up a little, the last issue of Waid Garney, because they had to admit that they didn't do the trick. One of the reasons I mention this is I think it's Wizard 73. Don't hold me to it, but it's the same wizard that a few weeks ago I was able to get the I was able to get the Jim Lee Star Wars information. That same issue had an interview with Mark Waid and Ron Garney, and they speak of at length how angered they were about what was happening. It said, Waid Garney tackle Post Heroes Reborn. This is by Matthew Seinrich. Matthew is a buddy of mine. He is, you'll see him in our photos every summer at our we have a comic book group of us. It's going to be 20 years soon. We've been having our Wednesday night preview night. We have our big Nobu dinner. It's myself, it's Jeff Loeb, it's Robert Kirkman. It's a bunch of people in the entertainment industry you probably don't know, but it's my buddy Matt, two Matts, and several other people. My good buddy Eric, my buddy Peter. We round it out and we have a really good time. The opening of this, Matt Seinrich was at Wizard. Matt, you know Matt from Robot Chicken, that big giant successful brand that he has been helming for 20 years. He did this interview. It says, "We got fired," Mark Waid calls. Matter of factly, "We got fired." Artist Ron Garney nods in agreement. I'm going to do this with some live commentary from me. He sits to the right of his corner. The two have just settled into the 12th floor boardroom of Marvel Comics Manhattan offices, looking surprisingly at ease. How ironic it is that just 12 months earlier, the writer-artist team had been unceremoniously dumped by Marvel, being told that despite the increased sales and critical acclaim, of which there were none, there was critical acclaim, there was no increased sales, not significant, maybe 5,000, but 5,000 is not what they're looking for here. So they can, if I go up 2 sales, I've increased sales, right? Increased sales. Had this book done what they intended to do, there would be no need for me to do what I did, okay? This is fun. If you're not having fun, then turn it off. If this angers you, if this triggers you, just turn the episode off. I'm going to keep reading this interview. Unceremoniously dumped, despite critical acclaim. Their efforts on Captain America just weren't good enough. Okay, there's the truth. Waid and Garney struggled to make sense of Heroes Reborn, a year-long experiment that brought in former Marvel stars Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee to take over Captain America, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man. And it left them in the cold. I just didn't get it, laughs Ron Garney. They hired their competitors to do the job we were already doing well. Ron, I love you. Let's look at here. Staring in my eyes. You weren't. You didn't. Even when you came back after, the Heroes Return Captain America did not outsell the Heroes Reborn Captain America. I have had my Heroes Reborn rediscovered, the Captain America stuff, again and again and again by audiences who are like, this is great. It was meant to be a brand new interface with Captain America if you had never interfaced with Captain America. And the fans of Youngblood and Supreme and Prophet and Glory and Evangeline and all the books that I were doing, and the fans of Gen 13 and Wildcats and all the books that Jim were doing, they weren't buying those Marvel titles, but they did because we did them. Right here, this is only published a few years ago. 80 for 80. I'm holding this up. It's a giant, nice, really sized coffee table book that Marvel put out just a few years back. 80 for 80, celebrating their 80 years. I didn't get an advance copy of this. I wasn't interviewed for this. It's a really handsome book. There it is. The Avengers are right there. My Heroes Reborn Avengers is right here on the cover. And lo and behold, when it gives a page to every year, okay? So when it gets to 1996, what is it? Oh, because this is the best-selling Avengers of all space and time. I've said it again. I may be saying it to just trigger those people who it triggers, but I love to say it. 1996, Heroes Reborn. That was the story. That's because we're just going to cut to the chase. Iron Man, Fantastic Four, Avengers, and Captain America. Together, sold about 300,000 each on the relaunch in 1996. Some a little higher, some a little lower. The Avengers is the best-selling Avengers of all time. I've mentioned this. John Jackson Miller is the comic book historian who put those numbers out there when the movie was opening. Avengers 2012, the weekend the movie was opening. And it was an article that said, you'll be surprised to know. They put Wolverine and Spider-Man on the Avengers in the 2000s to reboot that team. To find out that My Heroes Reborn had held on to that. That's why they did it, Ron. That's why they did it, Mark. Cap at 25,000 units. Cap at 35,000 units. Wasn't cutting it. Not when you can get Cap at 300 units. Avengers at 360,000 units. The first month's launch of all those books, if you put all the numbers together, it's about 1.3 million sales between the September sales, 1986, the year we're talking about. That's millions of dollars for Marvel Comics. Millions of dollars. They paid for the contracts of Jim and I by the second or the third issues. They paid for our contracts. They paid for the expenses. We had done extremely well. This only further infuriated Marvel. What derailed this was Marvel's bankruptcy, which is also something that occurred in 1996, which caused them to kill all their contracts. I've covered this all. We're going to skip right through this. Marvel called me, said, we want to give you half what we're paying you now. I said, no, that's not acceptable. I didn't even try and negotiate. I knew that there would be nothing further because they said, we've already talked to Jim. Jim said he'll take it. I said, then Jim can take it because I've told my 6 issues that are constantly, my Captain America stuff has been reprinted 3 times in 3 different editions in the last 15 years. And it'll continue to get reprinted because when people read those books, they enjoy them. Eric Stevenson is the publisher of Image Comics. He's been the publisher of Image Comics for 20 years. He was basically editing that book along with me and putting it to press and getting it out there. And he was at a dinner party for different professionals, given the relationship that he was in at the time. And somebody had mentioned to him, did not know. Well, they learned upon meeting him at the dinner party, because Eric told me this right after this. He said, they said, what do you do? He said, I do comic books. They go, what do you do? He goes, Captain America. He goes, oh my gosh, I've been buying Captain America, but they're no longer doing it with that guy. That guy was me. He said, so I had never bought those comics, but I'm not buying them any further. And we've discussed the back end of the Heroes Reborn, Wildstorm produced Captain America and Avengers were incredibly unimpressive. They were not in any way, shape, or form a cut above the kind of stuff that we were giving you that you guys were going crazy for. It was definitely, it showed that Jim took 50 cents on the dollar of what was the budgets that I was receiving and put out a bunch of lesser talent. I don't care if they're, they were veterans. It wasn't what people wanted. What they wanted was something fresh, was something new, and what they were getting in the first 6 issues of all the books. To say the last half was phoned in is just an understatement. This turned out to be, in case you're wondering, as I told you, I wasn't quite certain, but the one thing that impresses me about this magazine, this Wizard magazine that wraps up 1996, Gareb Shamus was the publisher at the time, and he would brag to everybody how much money he was making in terms of advertising. And with 30 plus years in the rear view, when you see the level of advertising, the video game companies that were buying double page ads, quadruple page ads, Wizard magazine was getting the Rolls Royce treatment. These ads right here that I'm showing you, these Sega ads, this is a giant ad buy. This is a giant, massive investment by the company. There are advertisements like this all over this issue. Wizard had very much taken the comic book world and made it very sexy to their advertisers in the way they presented it. So when I look back at the top 10, what's the story of 1996 per Wizard magazine? I am holding up right now for the audience that listens, page 112? No, page 116, page 117 of the Wizard 1996 year-end spectacular. I am across both pages. The Big 10, the big stories: Heroes Reborn and Shattered Image. Rob Liefeld leaves Image and Heroes Reborn. I can't tell you how many thousands of words there are in this edition devoted to me, because at the beginning of the news section, it makes a big deal of the fact that I was bringing Cable in to meet Captain America in Heroes Reborn. Cable crashes. Heroes Reborn controversy is on the second page of the news. So I grabbed this knowing that 96 was the year that we're going to talk about. It had been years before I looked at this, since I'd looked at this. And the fact that it was so, I'm like, oh, I guess this was a year that I was in the headlines a lot. And there's the Wizard magazines of it all. They were the ones that tried to push you and convince you that the Waid Garney Captain America was doing far better than it was doing. As I said, the proof is in the pudding. The company could have changed course at any time. Nothing was locked in. If they wanted to, if they wanted to continue with the team that had been doing, they would have. Let's continue, because this is funny to me. When I came across this, I knew I'd be commenting on it. So Marvel's extended an olive branch to Waid and Garney, asking them to come back. Ron Garney said they hired their competitors to do the job we were already doing well. So let's establish this. You were not doing it well. You were not doing well. That's a fallacy. There should have been a pushback on that immediately by Matt Steinrich. Love you, buddy. But you should have said, no, you weren't. Your sales were less than 10% of Rob's launch sales. Okay, that's just a fact, guys. I think I've established before, and I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter. If I didn't fight, if I had laid down and just let people run me over in this business, I'd be a completely different person. I've been a fighter my entire life. I've had to fight for everything. We did not come as a family of means. It was hard work. It was hustle. It was commitment. It was deadlines. It was discipline. And I continue to bring that with me to this day. So when I read somebody just say something so completely ignorant and false, I have no problem. And these guys do carry the bitterness. You can tell the guys who carry the bitterness. And the irony here is he says he's going to work with Mark Waid for years to come. They didn't. They barely worked for 2 years following this. Okay. Ron Garney was drawing the Hulk, and drawing Silver Surfer and drawing all different other projects. He did 2 different Captain America books with Mark Waid following Heroes Reborn, and neither of them took. And the second book was canceled pretty quickly. Why would I want to return to Captain America? Mark Waid repeats, pondering the question. He said, because I want to do Captain America. I'm not going to let business decisions get in the way of my creative pursuits. Okay. So this then continues, and I'm gonna share with you, because again, there's just, this is, with a lot of this is without context. They then say, quite frankly, how did you feel when Heroes Reborn was announced and Marvel took you guys off? It was bogus, Mark Waid said. I can't speak for Ron, but we both thought this can't really be happening. It was happening. It was happening before you got hired. And maybe they weren't informed of this fact. Maybe Marvel kept and hoped that the Liefeld Lee deal wouldn't happen. But this really gives you a sneak peek. These guys feel, you're going to read here, they found out they were being removed from the book from the press. They say here, Ron Garney says, I thought it was a rumor. I thought it was like, that's just baloney. This is never going to happen. Then I heard from other people, said, you might want to investigate this. And then I found out it was reality. And I was like, how did this happen? Mark says, we were disappointed we got taken off before we had a chance to finish what we wanted to do. They had a year. They had a year on the book, and the book would not move the needle. Move the needle is what everything's about. Music, pop. When we go over the movies and the music of this year, it's all about moving the needle, always. If you're not moving the needle, they get somebody else to move the needle, okay? Then it was, Matt Steinrich has an interesting, he said, when you heard about Heroes Reborn, did you want to work on it? And then Mark Waid said, I wanted to write Captain America, but I didn't want to write the Heroes Reborn Captain America. It wouldn't have been Captain America. Garney says, I don't think I would have done it. And we were not asked, Mark Waid says. I want to set the record straight. He says, he said, he talks about the fact, and I did do this. Mark talks about me in a second, but he says, I was sad I wasn't working on Captain America anymore. He goes, there was no official announcement. Ron Garney says, there was no official announcement shared with us. We ended up talking to each other saying, can you believe this is happening? So when Heroes Reborn actually began, what kind of feelings did you have towards Marvel? Mark Waid said, after my girlfriend stopped me from pouring gasoline on myself, I came to my senses. Seriously, though, from a business standpoint, I understand why their decision was made. I don't agree with it. Nobody likes getting fired, especially when you were doing a job that everyone seemed to like. Ron Garney says, I don't want to badmouth but Mark Waid says, I don't want to badmouth, but Rob Liefeld never asked me to write Captain America. Okay, so this is a period right after I got the gig, and knowing that Mark was, that there seemed to be some critical acclaim and some favor for what he was doing, I felt like, well, you know what? Why don't I nip this in the bud? I'll make him an offer. Mark Waid tells you in this interview exactly what my offer was. Rob told me he would pay me $25,000 an issue. This is true. To dialogue pages that he had already drawn and plotted. Okay, remember how I talk about dialogue and scripters? Look at this. He's saying, I don't want to be a scripter. You wrote and illustrated this story. That's what I did in New Mutants and X-Force and everything else. When they give too much credit to any scripter, think about this. What are they scripting? A story that was already written. If you're the scripter, you didn't write the story. You're dialoguing. You're putting word balloons. I asked Mark Waid if he wanted to get paid $25,000 per issue, far exceeding what he was being paid to do Captain America at the time. I said, I'll pay you this if you want a script over me. You can still get some personality in script. Of course you can. You can still get some juice, some feel. I've had Jeff Loeb script over me. I've had Eric Stevenson script over me. I've had Joe Casey script over me. I've had a lot of really good people put scripts. I've had Jim Valentino script over me. Okay, it's fun. Trust me, it's fun. He said, no thanks, I'm not interested. He said, I kept seeing in chats online that Liefeld had asked me, and Mark Waid said, that's not what happened. Then they said, what do you think of the take on Heroes Reborn? Ron Garney says, I guess it was achieved what it was supposed to. If you mean it sold hundreds of thousands. At the time when Marvel came and said to me that, Rob, you've gone below, I've read it to you. I've got that memo in a future episode. I'll hang it up right here. There was a new publisher that had taken over. And he wrote to me and said, Rob, your sales of 230,000 copies of Captain America are below our expected quote, the expectations. This is after, I think, issue 4. Issue 4 is selling 230,000 copies. There is no issue 4 at the time that was doing that number, okay? But they cited that as a disappointing number, one that was below their expectations, and that they cited that as, we need to renegotiate. We look forward to you. They weren't firing me. I was never officially fired or removed. There's no documentation to reflect that. It was, will you take half? Will you take a huge reduction to continue what you've already committed to pay these people 100%? We want you to pay them 50%. And we want to pay you less because each issue had a specific budget. They wanted to slash the back half, as I said. So what we achieved, we did. We got these books back into people's hands. We made Heroes Return possible. Heroes Reborn made Heroes Return possible, and these guys still couldn't outsell what we were doing. Mark Waid said, I guess people tried to do their best. I'm not going to dodge the question. I haven't been following along. Then they were asked, they asked how long they planned to work together. And Garney says, I plan to work with Mark Waid for a very long time to come. If that means under 24 months following this interview, then that's what for a long time to come means. They asked if they were going to continue any aspects of Heroes Reborn. They said no. They said, we have been told that I can leave behind anything I want, and I don't have to carry anything with me. And so that's really, it ends with, without being egocentric, we know what people want with Captain America. If we were looking for any connections to Heroes Reborn, it will be informed on Cap's view as to his own future and what that means going forward. So they were basically saying, we're not going to touch anything that was done in Heroes Reborn. Again, that interview reflects a couple of guys who said they found out about Heroes Return. Well, I understand their frustration. I do. But the idea that we did not set out to achieve what we achieved is a fallacy. And again, Heroes Reborn and Image Comics were a giant focus of 1996. The number 2, number 3 story, depending on where you're looking at, is another Mark Waid helmed project called Kingdom Come. There was a lot of friction behind that. They never really allowed that to come to the surface, but apparently Alex Ross was writing 2 issues and Mark Waid was writing 2 issues, but Alex was illustrating all of them. It is, in my opinion, if you follow what Alex wrote, those issues are the ones that resonate deeper with me. One of the things that they have in this year-end issue that's very interesting is they go page by page and look at all the Easter eggs. Alex would paint DC staffers. He would paint comic book journalists. He would use actors as reference. It's really a great application of this magazine, which was otherwise completely and totally creatively bankrupt. Occasionally, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Remember that. So 1996, it was the buildup to Heroes Reborn. It was the fallout from Marvel's bankruptcy. It was Marvel and DC working together, making Marvel versus DC the miniseries. It was Amalgam. Non-Marvel stuff, Spawn Witchblade, Medieval Spawn Witchblade got together for a really pretty. This was as I was leaving Image Comics. Image Comics, I had tendered my resignation. I had had a resignation letter with the publisher of Image Comics, Larry Martyr. For a year, he had kept it in his drawer and asked me each and every month not to leave. We had the most popular family of titles, and I had moved them into Maximum Press in the summer of 1996. I was told and then later threatened if I didn't bring my books back from where I had removed them, that there would be consequences. I said, "Don't bother. I've left. Let's finalize this." There was anger that carried through this. When I read this, all the anger is coming from the Image Comics side at the time because my leaving Image made things more difficult for them. That is not an egocentric thing to say. My 22 books a month were paying over $2,000 a month into the office. Well, you can figure out that suddenly when $50,000 that you can't immediately replace is walking out the door on your budget of how you're going to keep the doors open. And I was told, Rob, this is going to really hurt us. Later along in interviews, Todd McFarlane said and is quoted that we could handle Rob's departure. We couldn't handle Jim's. That wasn't really speaking to egos or talent. It was that now Jim is leaving with his 15 books a month that pay $2,000 and suddenly $30,000 is gone. So within 2 years, you lost almost $100,000, easily $80,000 in revenue. Back when that was significant money. $80,000 is significant money to a publisher today. But as partners, you pay in a set amount, and that was the set amount. It could have been more. Maybe it was $2,500, but it was no less than $2,000, and really no more than that. And then, and that was that's a month, people. That's not a year. That's a month. So I guess when you do look at it as between Jim and myself, $80,000 at minimum a month going into the office to pay for at the time, they probably had 10 employees. Suddenly that's removed. They didn't replace that overnight. They did not replace that overnight. One of the things that I think that they were doing, and it caught my eye in here, is a reminder by Image Comics, and I think I would have done the same thing. There's a double-page Image Comics ad, center of the book, and it says, "There's never been anything like us before." This is true. There has never been anything like Image Comics. And you can see all the different comics. I'm holding up this double-page ad that has the Image logo that I designed in the center that I am now credited for in the comic books. Can you believe that? And it's showing up the diverse line of comics that Image was doing. Image is trying to tell the customers. At the bottom, it says, "The most powerful lineup in the comic book industry keeps getting stronger." It was trying to say, don't worry, we're going to be okay. And they were fine. Marvel's bankruptcy is the story of the year. Marvel hadn't filed bankruptcy when they put this issue together, okay? If this is coming out in December, Marvel files bankruptcy in December of 1996, within 10 days of the year ending. 1996 is the bankruptcy date. This sends Marvel into a reorganization spiral. The costs had to be maintained, but it certainly wasn't the sales of the comics that hurt the company. I've mentioned this again. Look, and this is a great pivot to talk about all of the misinformation that's out there. This last weekend, based on the X-Men episode of Rob Liefeld show that I did recently, I had a couple people come at me and tell me that I was wrong, that the X-Men with John Byrne and Claremont wasn't popular. It struggled. It was near cancellation. They used a quote from John Byrne from his message boards, but that's not historically accurate. I knew I could body this guy immediately because if you're going to come at me with the X-Men, you're going to lose. That is a a family of titles that I have attributed to greatly. I have a great legacy within, and I was a great student and continue to be a student of the X-Men. I casually walked over to my shelf where my X-Men companion books and my omnibuses are, and I grabbed all the different interviews with Roy Thomas from the 60s, 70s, and his quotes in 1981, 82, before he was an elderly man. So fairly, this is a middle-aged Roy Thomas, not a senior Roy Thomas. Talking to Neil Adams, talking to Len Wein, talking to all manner of people who aren't with us, but in their primes, they gave very, very definitive statements about the conditions of the X-Men at the time. And what John Byrne now wants to posit is that, well, he was always under cancellation. He's trying to make this kind of this long-suffering version of himself that what he did was under a great duress. No, and then today on I love it, because in the back, once a year in the back of your comic books, they gave you a circulation statement. This was Jim Valentino pointed this out to me really early on when I met him in like 1986. And if you look at these circulation statements, because one guy was basically saying, no, Rob, you are wrong. The John Byrne books were not selling well. I said, well, first of all, John Byrne took over. It was bi-monthly. Then immediately it went monthly because the sales went up. You go bi-monthly because the sales don't support you doing it 12 times a year. Immediately, within a few months, bumped up to monthly. Byrne finishes 3 years of monthly X-Men comics, and it climbs the charts, and it's leaving everything in its wake. A gentleman compiled, I'm showing you right here, compiled all of these circulation statements. You can freeze the camera. It's white lettering on black. 1981. This is when Days of Future Past is shipping. This is when the last of the John Byrne stuff is happening. The X-Men sales are at 450,000. When John Byrne comes on in 1977, the X-Men sales are at 240,000. Okay. The 1980 is 327,000. 1981 is 1981 as shown right here. It's just crazy. You have a 3-year period where it goes 345 to 450, 450,000. By 1983, the X-Men is selling 524,000 copies. Okay, but the jump from 248,000 to 350,000 is, so John Byrne adds 100,000 to circulation. He was not under cancellation. That's a lie. This guy said, but John Byrne said so. John Byrne is a lunatic and a known bad narrator. He is not a reliable narrator. He is trying to twist the time, and if he has, as this person showed from his message board, said, I was always under the shadow of cancellation. No, Dave Cockrum was under the shadow of cancellation, and Archie Goodwin, the editor of the X-Men at the time, is on record as saying so. That is why he got John Byrne and Terry Austin, because he believed that their art style would carry greater mass appeal, and more importantly, they had proven that they could hit a monthly deadline, which Dave Cockrum was struggling with. Those are comic book facts. All too often, you are being, and we've talked about it here, I wish it was so. The guy who told me that Jim Carrey was definitively the bad guy in Deadpool 3, and he told me this in 2021, 2.5 years before Deadpool 3 was fully greenlit. I knew all the behind the scenes. I knew the villains they were talking about. I knew the direction that they were going in. Jim Carrey was never the villain. This guy, there was an internet rumor by somebody who just wanted to put it out there. This guy glommed onto it. He looked me straight in the eye at the comic book store signing when I was doing Snake Eyes Dead Game, congratulating me on Jim Carrey. I said, Jim Carrey's not. He goes, come on, yeah, he is. I'm like, he's not. And then I finished signing his books, and he said, well, I'm just really excited to have Jim Carrey. And I said, I've tried to tell you, I don't want you to be let down. Jim Carrey is not the villain. And he says, but I want him to be the villain. I want it to be true. I want it to be true is not enough. You got to have facts. You got to have figures. And no matter what it is you're reading, again, Marvel comic sales were not why Marvel went bankrupt. It was they were overextended, and the guy that owned Marvel, who also owned Revlon Cosmetics, had bought too many companies, and he was bleeding red ink everywhere, and had to stop the chaos. So the whole thing, the sticker company, the toy company, the cartoons, the animation division, the comics, they all went into this state a bankruptcy, and it took them years to come out of. 1996 was tumultuous. It was entertaining. It was the first time in a long time. I mean, in that Wizard magazine, there's an ad for Captain America and Batman by a much elderly, not as juiced, not as in his prime John Byrne, but it was Captain America Batman. That hadn't happened before. Uh, that 1996 really reflected Marvel and DC working together to sell as many copies for retailers who needed it, who didn't have the global reach to sell to the next state over and the next state over. It was who's coming into my store, and if they're not coming into my store and I'm not expanding my clubhouse, which is very difficult to do in terms of, foot traffic. Chuck Rosansky couldn't do it. He opened near Disneyland. But nowadays, we go global. We go all over. I myself sell to Australia, to England, to France, to Germany. We sell to South Korea. We sell to China, Japan, Canada regularly. Those markets are a big deal. We today I got notifications that packages were being delivered that we had sent out in Tennessee, in Florida, in North Carolina, in Michigan, in New York, in Pennsylvania. This is the new marketplace. We could have used this in the 90s. It would have been a different world. It would have been a completely different world. You want to know the movies that you were seeing in 1996? Let me tell you something. It was a great slate. We saw a lot of movies. Up until probably pre-pandemic, Joy and I would see 2 movies a week, which I was told was a lot. And our friends, you got to understand, my mom informed me the minute my oldest son, Luke Liefeld, was born in May of 2000. She said, I get every Friday. Your sister's going to take every Saturday. My dad had passed 6 months before my son was born. So my mom basically, no negotiations. We're babysitting. Sherry's taking Saturdays. I'm taking Fridays. If Sherry sometimes comes over on my Fridays and I come over on her Saturdays, and Joy and I are like, what? This continued through all 3 of my children, through Chase Liefeld, born in 2002, to Olivia Liefeld, born in 2004. Okay. We were tremendous beneficiaries of a whole lot of love. And then you got Joy's parents who were like, hey, which days do we get? And we're like, well, that's between you in-laws to negotiate. We would go to the movies all the time. It was our thing that we had been doing since we started dating. Joy and I loved movies. In case you're wondering, the first movie that Joy and I saw together was The Fly. 1986, The Fly. We were soft dating. We weren't, really in a committed relationship, but we saw The Fly. Brundlefly, Jeff Goldblum, David Cronenberg, fantastic film. That's our first movie date. From there on, we'd see Can't Buy Me Love. We saw Project X with the chimpanzee and the Matthew Broderick. I mean, these are the ones that jump out. But Joy and I saw a lot of movies. 1996 was a blast. If you have even a semblance of memory of 1996, you know that a movie that you saw a whole lot of was Independence Day. It is the number 1 movie by almost $100 million. It it really just crushed it. Let's $306 million. Okay, I was wrong. Not by $100 million, but by a good $60 million. The number 2 movie, Twister, at 240 million. I remember Twister coming out very, very early. It was when they were opening in the first weekend of May. And again, we went to see it, packed house. I went with Joy, her parents, my sister-in-law and her husband at the time. And we just had the best time. And I was like, this really showed the flex of the special effects, the power of those tornadoes, the ability to make things look real, not make robots and aliens, but to make, environments as powerful and as real and as dangerous as they did was a huge jump. So Twister was right behind Independence Day. When I say sophomore effort, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin had done that time travel movie, Stargate, and it had done really well. Independence Day was their follow-up. It was Will Smith's second blockbuster. He had been in Bad Boys, and yes, he had been into some dramas. He had been in some dramatic roles. It was by no means his sophomore movie outing. That's what I'm saying. But for a summer marquee, and then the next year, the very next calendar year, Against Aliens Again, Men in Black, solidified him as a worldwide blockbuster talent superstar. the likes of which could only be matched by Tom Cruise during his peaks. And trust me, their peaks crossed over. But Independence Day really broke Will Smith out in a way that hadn't been. Bad Boys was great. This was on another level. 306 million. Twister, a movie really without stars. The Twister was the star. Number 3, Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise breathes all fresh new life into an 60s TV spy show. Makes it a solo effort. Brian De Palma, loved that first movie. It's a little lacking in terms of action and scope and scale, but when it does get it right, it gets it right. There's enough nuance and espionage and thrills and chills. Mission Impossible was your number 3 with 180 million. The Rock, welcome to The Rock. Okay, Michael Bay, sophomore outing after all these music videos and after Bad Boys. So he and Will Smith and Roland Emmerich, they're all rolling into the top 5 with these big, giant sophomore blockbuster efforts. The Rock is my favorite Michael Bay film. It's up there with one of my favorite Sean Connery films, my favorite Nick Cage movies. I think it is a perfect movie. Ed Harris, everyone, brilliant. Love it. Just could not love it the most. It's weird. In real time, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, and it won't be the subject going forward, but there were people that flat out hated. They flat out hated The Rock. And I remember my sister-in-law having an argument with me, not the sister-in-law I saw Twister with, but she was in the business and she's like, The Rock is a terrible movie. I'm like, what? Great movie, loved it. The Nutty Professor blew us all away. Eddie Murphy, just so damn funny. All those roles, all that, prosthetic makeup, all of those different voices. Huge, biggest comedy of the year, 128 million. Ransom, give me back my son. Mel Gibson, superstar. This is where Mel was just, everything he did was a big deal. Everything he was like a Tom Cruise would walk into even the casual dramatic role and knock it out of the park. Ron Howard, I believe. Boy, I hope I'm right. I think he directed it. But it's Mel Gibson, Ransom. The Birdcage, big Robin Williams, Nathan Lane comedy, is your number 7 movie at 124 million. Just 1 million behind Ransom at 125. So Birdcage, that success is ridiculous. A Time to Kill, the movie that introduced us to the modern version of Matthew McConaughey, not the all right. They get younger. I stay the same age. Dazed and Confused Matthew McConaughey. This is full-on heartthrob, dramatic actor. Sam Jackson, Matthew McConaughey in a marquee superstar breakout role. Sandra Bullock in kind of a complimentary role. A Time to Kill, a big John Grisham book. 108 million. Number 9, 101 Dalmatians. Live action remake, basically about 500,000 behind A Time to Kill. And then The First Wives Club. Late great Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler. Literally last night, my wife and I were at a brand new bookstore. A brand new Barnes and Noble was open in our area, and one of the older theaters that I saw a whole bunch of movies at has been shuttered and closed down and looks like partially demoed. It's like they kept half of it. Even Joy's like, it looks like they kept half of the theater. We saw I said to Joy, we saw The First Wives Club there. I said, we saw the John Travolta movie, Michael, there. We saw Harrison Ford and Julia. Oh, what's it called? They did a remake. It was like I think a romantic comedy. I was just rattling off movies, and First Wives Club, $105 million, big deal. So Independence Day, Twister, Mission Impossible, The Rock, Nutty Professor, your top 5. Ransom, Birdcage, Time to Kill, 101 Dalmatians, First Wives Club. So Matthew McConaughey and Will Smith are preparing to dominate for the next 10 years. Twister is just, again, that's Steven Spielberg, produced by Steven Spielberg, Amblin Entertainment. There's no signs of slowing down. The Independence Day would go on to be Roland Emmerich's kind of shining moment. I worked with him, both he and Dean Devlin, on The Mark. I had a movie. I've done a dedicated podcast on it. Will Smith optioned my screenplay. We put The Mark into action, and it was in the fall of 1997 was when there was a bidding war between multiple studios. Roland and Dean, I got to know them over the course of many months. And they had just wrapped Godzilla. I'd go see Godzilla that next summer 1998 with Matthew Broderick, 1998's Godzilla. It felt like they lost a ton of momentum. I am not in love with that movie. I don't particularly care for it. Independence Day was absolutely their peak, and really a giant moment. The giant mothership blowing up the White House is an iconic moment for the ages. What music were you listening to in 1996? I'm going to tell you, we're listening to a whole lot of Alanis Morissette. Jagged Little Pill sold just shy of 7.5 million units. I did not buy Celine Dion's Falling Into You, but apparently there was an audience for that movie. I mean, for that album, it sold 6 million. The Fugees, boy, the score was a giant album. Fugees, 4.5. No Doubt, Orange Counties, Gwen Stefani and the Boys, No Doubt, was the number 4 album of the year. Tragic Kingdom, their breakout, 4.4 million. Mariah Carey's Daydream, 3 million. Tupac, All Eyes on Me, was number 6, 3 million copies. Metallica, Load, was number 7 with 3 million copies. Toni Braxton broke out. Secrets, her big breakthrough album, 2.9 million. Shania Twain was just getting rolling because she would keep this going all the way through 1997. She snuck in The Woman in Me in 1996, which would go on to lodge 2.8 million sales on its way to over 10 million. But for 1996, she had 2.8 million. She was the number 9. And number 10 is our boys Oasis joined. I just saw them about 8 weeks ago, crushing it at the Rose Bowl. What's the Story? Morning Glory. One of their, if not their biggest album. That's your top 10. Alanis Morissette was a force of nature. Those songs were monster. That album was monster. Jagged Little Pill had so many just catchy tunes, big hits. Again, I don't own a Celine Dion album. I was listening to Mariah Carey. I was listening to No Doubt. I was listening to Toni Braxton. I was listening to Metallica. I was listening to Shania, and I was definitely blasting Oasis. Good year for music. Good year. Good solid year for music. The Oasis is kind of that. What's the Story? Morning Glory is just a perfect album. They almost sing the entire album on tour. They are dedicated. In regards to what you were watching, what was driving your television habits, it's that rare period where Seinfeld and Friends were not at their peaks. They would move into the top slots. But in 1996, ER, George Clooney, Julianne Margulies, that bad boy got 22 million on average. 22 million. That's what a great football game gets now. You're going to see football, the number 1 football game. Back in the day, football has glowed up by about 10 million over 30 years. It's in the top 10, but nowhere near the 22 million that ER was getting at 10 o'clock on Channel 4, must-see TV, Thursday nights in 1996. Seinfeld was number 2, 20 million. 2 million behind ER, 20 million for Jerry, Elaine, Kramer, George. Seinfeld. Okay, here's the crazy part. Because Seinfeld was the lead-in, it was tied with Suddenly Susan and Friends were tied. That's how powerful that window in between them was. Friends would kick off the night and it would get 17 million, but Suddenly Susan was getting, I believe that was Brooke Shields, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't go the distance. It didn't maintain. Friends and Suddenly Susan are tied for 3. The Naked Truth is at 16.8 million. I don't even remember that show. Fired Up, I barely remember, was the number 6 show. These are all NBC shows, by the way. The top 6 are the coming and going. The top 6 represent all of Thursday night. It's crazy. NBC has the 1 through 6 spots. They were a powerhouse. They were a monster. And the aggregate, you'd say they average 20 million every Thursday night. You think Wizard was getting nice ads in for Sega in their magazine. Oh my gosh. Do you remember the Rolls Royces you were being sold, the Mercedes, all the high-end jewelry that you were being sold, and every movie studio had their best trailer on Thursday nights, on Friends, on Seinfeld, on ER. Number 7, Monday Night Football, 16 million. Monday Night Football was always the most watched football games. And at 16 million, you get an average Sunday afternoon game, 20 million now. A big game, 22, 25 million. So the NFL has grown their brand, and it was a powerful brand to begin with. Okay. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, this was crazy town. 16 million for Monday Night Football. At number 7, The Single Guy, another NBC comedy. Number 8, 14 million. Home Improvement, Tim Allen. I've never seen an episode, but I was aware of it. Number 9, 14 million. And number 10, Touched by an Angel, tied with 60 Minutes at 13.5 million each. 60 Minutes was your number 11. Nowadays, 60 Minutes is in the top 5 consistently. Network dramas don't carry anywhere near. I mean, you guys, they're like, Dancing with the Stars sees its biggest audience increase. My daughter said she and her friends are watching. I said, you watch that show? She goes, we like the influencers on there, Dad. We like the influencers. And then I see Dancing with the Stars audience has gone up in the last 2 seasons, 7 million. You're not breaking the top 20. The top 20 here ends at 11.5 million. Rounding out the top 20, 2020 after 60 Minutes. So you had 2 big news magazine shows that both were getting about 13 million. NYPD Blue on ABC was your number 13 show. Your CBS Sunday Night Movie, that was a thing, averaged 12 million viewers. Primetime Live on ABC, another news show, 12 million. Frasier, 11.8 million. Spin City with Michael J. Fox was the number 17th show, 11.7 million. The NBC Sunday Night Movie was number 18, and Drew Carey they were tied for 18, so 18, 19, a tie with the NBC Sunday Night Movie and the Drew Carey Show. And then Dateline NBC on Tuesday, the Tuesday edition, was 11.5 million, rounding out your top 20. That's what you were watching in 1996. The movies, the music, the TV shows, and the comic books. Heroes Reborn, Image Comics, Marvel, DC, they really lit up. Behind the scenes, 1996 was tumultuous in business dealings, in comic sales, and what was going on at the respective companies, the big bold swings, the big moves, and it ended up with the number 1 company in bankruptcy. 1996 was a whopper. Hope you enjoyed walking through it with me again today. I love looking back at these years, watching what was going on. It was really, again, back when big summer events mattered. Onslaught was a summer event that moved you towards the big fall event. But also, the big fall event that year was, the rivalry was Kingdom Come, which came out late summer, early fall, and Heroes Reborn, and they both moved the needle. Now, ironically, because here's a way to end this up, because remember, I have generously offered my contempt for the Wizard magazine. It fell in love with manipulating the market. I won't even open. I'll just tell you that Heroes Reborn, none of them, not Jim's, not mine's, make their top 20 of the year. No matter the sales, no matter the connection, no matter the popularity, that review board of all of those people who are now mostly no longer in comics, they showed their contempt. They showed their jealousy. These guys really wanted to be making comics and decided that they wouldn't like a lot of the people who were making comics, and they attempted to make some superstars and attempted to derail some others. Those were 2 fingers pointing in my direction. Hey, when I'm not doing this podcast, 1996, hell of a year. When I'm not doing this show, I'm all over social media on X. Now, what you're going to be seeing me do on X, at Robert Liefeld, blue check mark, I'm going to be talking about Youngblood. Youngblood is a big, giant investment of my time and my talents. It used to be that you would throw a rock in this comics industry and you'd find an artist who was writing. John Byrne was writing and drawing. George Perez was writing and drawing. Jim Starlin was writing and drawing. Dan Jurgens was writing and drawing. Howard Chaykin was writing and drawing. Dale Keown was writing and drawing. Mark Silvestri was writing and drawing. Jim Lee was writing and drawing. Todd McFarlane was writing and drawing. Eric Larson continues to write and draw, and your boy is writing and drawing. Daniel Warren Johnson, can't wait to see him writing and drawing again on a regular basis. I miss it. I missed those 6 issues of. I miss. It's been a year and a half since he was writing and drawing Transformers Monthly. I look forward. I know he's got more in the works. I can't wait to see it. But even then, if you add Daniel Warren Johnson, if you add Rob Liefeld, if you add Eric Larson, we are a dying breed. We're a dying breed. So of course I'm going to sell. Of course I'm going to push. Of course I'm going to tell you. Check out Youngblood. It's in stores November 12th. I'm going to talk about it all over X. I'm going to be sharing some of the covers. As I said, this thank you cover that I'm holding up again, which is based on my 1992 promotional poster that we recolored. Scotty Young, okay. We got Daniel Warren Johnson. I know I have more in here. Here's some. I have great retail partners, and you're going to hear about me talking about them. Big Time Collectibles. This is a cover I did for them, okay. This is Comic Tom. Comic Tom. This is a cover I did for Comic Tom. That's a foil version of this Bloody Shaft cover. I think this is so fun. Right now on my Whatnot, I did a special collector's edition of Youngblood 2. It's already out. It's done. Youngblood 2. Don't let anybody tell you that this comic does not have a ton of creative momentum, because I am way ahead of the curve. Here is a foil. You only get this from my on-stream components. There is no silver foil cover A other than the Whatnot platform. And here it is. You got to get Whatnot. You got to follow Rob Liefeld. You got to join my shows. I'm Robert Liefeld on X. Follow me there. I love reading your replies, your mentions, your comments. Here's Ryan Stegman. His X-Men Artist Supreme, Venom Artist Supreme. Look at that chapel. One of the best chapels I've ever seen. He's got a cover. He's got a cover coming out. This is a direct, this is only available for me on Whatnot. This is number 1, but it's legacy number 95. Because issue 2 is 96, issue 3 is 97, issue 4 is 98, issue 5 is 99. Issue 100 is coming in April on the 34th anniversary. Youngblood will have its 100th issue out. Legacy numbering's a real thing. Here is a A&Z. A&Z. I think they're going to be having these on eBay. This is their brilliant foil. I did a special cover for them. That's the foil edition. I'm holding it up for you to see. From A&Z. Here's the cover A. Okay, look at that cover A. Is that incredible? I love it. I'm so thrilled with it. E.M. Gist, Eric Gist, painted the entire damn team. It's spectacular. It's wonderful. It's lovely. It's a ratio variant. Don't look out. I'm going to be pushing these on Instagram. On Instagram, I am at Rob Liefeld. Blue check signifies it's really me. I am talking to you. We are using content, hopefully to entertain and to engage in a way that we hadn't been months prior. My boy Scotty is crushing it. We do extended filming days, editing, go back and forth. He shows the final product. We give it out to you guys. You guys seem to be responding. We're going to be sharing even more in regards to Youngblood and all the new projects that we have coming forward. Jim Rugg did one of my favorites. This is for Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, baby. Look at that. Look at that incredible Jim Rugg homaging the incredible absolute Batman Nick Dragotta cover. Ryan Otley. Oh my gosh, I inked Ryan Otley. I inked that Ryan Stegman as well. What a pleasure. Is there a better Die Hard? I don't think so. This is fantastic. Kyle Nagu, one of my current favorite guys working in the business, asked him. He said, Rob, I'd love to. This crushes. I love it. It's incredible. Instagram at Rob Liefeld. X Robert Liefeld. Both have blue checks. Both tell you it's really me. I'm on TikTok at Rob Liefeld, talking about all this stuff, engaging with you in every possible way. I have a Facebook group, Rob Liefeld, Marvel, Extreme, and Beyond. Join us. Come see us. Come hang out with us. We'd love to talk to you. Every episode of this show gets a dedicated post so you can share, parse, discuss what your thoughts and opinions on the topics that we cover here. 1996 is a 1996 was a powder keg. Discuss it with me. Marvel, Rob Liefeld, Marvel, Extreme, and Beyond is the name of the group. Find it on Facebook. Submit to join myself or Terry Sala, Terry Sala, S-A-L-A, is my co-admin. He will click you on through. We would love to have you. We'll look forward to seeing you. Again, get on Whatnot. Follow me. All manner of exclusive signed. Like this again. This silver foil Youngblood cover A is this holofoil, and this is the holofoil. Is nowhere to be found other than through me. Some of these books you're not going to be able to get your hands on. I've got some quantity. I'll tell you, I've got a little of a lot. I don't have a lot of a little. I have a little of a lot. I'll be signing them. I'll be sketching on them. I'll be doing, CGC refers to my chisel signature. There's a blood splatter chisel. There's a drop shadow chisel. There's a just standard chisel. All of those are, when they're graded, CGC calls them sketches. They call them sketches. Come by, visit our Whatnot show. We got tons of exclusive material. I cannot wait to share it with you. I love the live streaming aspect. I'm leaning all the way into it. We are well into 3 years on that platform. We have a 5-star rating and 1-day shipping. Please check us out. I have a CGC signature series. It's got a few more weeks. It cuts off right after Batman Deadpool, the DC version that's coming out right after Youngblood the week after. Get your books in, talk to CGC, secure your deadline, get those books in. I want to sign and sketch and draw and whatever is on the menu. Go to CGC, their website, pull down signature series, look at Rob Liefeld, look at the menu, look at the offerings, make your selections, get your stuff in. I can't wait to sign those in December for you and get those turned around. Thank you for listening to Robservations. Thank you for your word of mouth. I'm going to share with you a gentleman shared this with me. He sent this to me on Instagram, and I immediately took a screen grab because it touched me as deeply as it did. This guy's name is M. He only called himself M. Actually, Climb to Glory 1999 is his other handle. He sent me just the other day. I told you when I tell you that I read your DMs, your messages, I do. I can't get back to all of them, but I read them. Mr. Liefeld, thank you so much for all the characters that you have created. Your imagination gave me access to a world of adventures. I was a nerdy outcast who only had 1 or 2 friends. Your comics made my childhood. I ended up joining the U.S. Army Infantry because I wanted to be a hero like the one on those comic book pages. I must have handed out thousands of your comic books in Afghanistan and Iraq. LOL. Thank you very much. Climb to Glory. This specific message by you just stopped me in my tracks because I believe one of the largest contingents, one of the largest segments that has contacted me over the years is from the military. Apparently, and I have been told, and I've been given great military coins and patches that I don't deserve, will never deserve. They have been shared with me by members of the armed services, men and women, and they said, your comics were what I collected on the barracks, on the base. I guess these bookstores, these comics, that they carry comic books specifically because there's such a giant fan base for them. And it is so humbling. And when I read this, and I read that you served your country and you put yourself in danger in a way that I will certainly never do and could never imagine, you honor me by saying that anything that I wrote and drew gave you an entertainment or inspired you, as you said, to be a hero. Buddy, that is just beyond. Thank you. Climb to Glory 1999. You gave me a really great moment of reflection, and it caused me to appreciate you even and all that you have given. So please, I hope someone tells you that I read your message. I'll certainly let you know. But I appreciate you, and thank you to everybody who reaches out. I try and read as many of your interactions. You know what? Right now, let me see. I think I got a new one. I'm going to read it. If you leave a message for me on Spotify or on Apple, I intend to read it at some point. I know I have fallen terribly behind. It's a very busy season, busy period. One of the reasons I implore you to follow me on the live streams is I just can't. I got 2 invitations to conventions last year. I got 2 invitations to conventions for the end of this year. And you guys, they throw tons of money and entice me. And I say, no, I can't do it because I have to stay here and do the work. I have to make the pages. I have to scan the pages. I have to send the pages. I don't have an assistant. I talk to the letterer, the colorist. When I need inking assistance, whether it's Chance Wolf, whether it's Corey Hampshire, whether it's Ed Tadeo, I reach out. I pull them in. I have intimate, knowledge of all the lines being put on. I am just constantly creating these books, and when I call and reach out and ask Scotty Young to do a cover, Ryan Otley to do a cover, Ryan Stegman to do a cover, Kyle Nagu to do a cover. That is, I don't have an editor contacting them. It's me, Rob Liefeld, making contact. I am entrenched in doing the work. I just cannot get out. But the way that you can get stuff, and I have a CGC witness at every show with me, Key Collectibles, who participates in each and every show and is a world-class shipper of stuff, which is why we have a one-day shipping. He is alongside me, and he can witness. We can do full. We can facilitate in every possible way. That's why the live streams are so important, because I just can't get to you as much as I love the physical interaction and pressing the flesh and meeting you. It's really gone down to 2 shows a year, if that now. So the live stream component is the best way for me to interact with you. I'm so overwhelmed and so busy. I just cannot get to these shows. Here is a recent. This is about the Jim Lee Star Wars. Said Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars is what this guy, and that's reflecting on Bill Murray's Saturday Night Live skits when he turned Star Wars, the theme song. He put words to it and made it a lounge act. 5 stars, Rob. Another excellent civics class on all things Star Wars. I remember you saying earlier in the year about how Marvel insisted on getting Star Wars out a month before the movie. My observations today is that I recall they also did the same for Empire Strikes Back. Marvel's Super Special number 16. This is correct. I'm just nodding in agreement. Of course, this meant that the comic book spoiled the line, Luke, I am your father. I understand George wanted to sue Marvel because of this. Do you have any truth of this 44-year-old rumor, or was this just another lie-filled story? Let me tell you something. That happened before the Marvel Super Special. The digest, the paperback digest comic book was at the booksellers on a Friday night. It was about 6 weeks before I grabbed it. Not only did it blow the secret of Luke and Vader, but Yoda was drawn differently. There was a different model for Yoda. He's brown. He has long white hair. So what you heard is true. It did beat the movie to the punch, depending on where you were, anywhere from 6 to 4 weeks. So that was out there. I was able to show up. Look, in 1980, summer of 1980, I'm 12. Did I bike over to my friends at the park? Hey guys, do you want to know a secret from Star Wars, from Empire Strikes Back? Because it's coming out in a few weeks. I know something. 3 said, no, don't tell us. 1 said, you got to tell me. We biked over to the corner. What? He screamed, what? Hey man, when you learn that kind of knowledge, you got to share it. You got to share it with at least one person. The people who didn't want it, we didn't talk about it. And then we both agreed that we would keep it to ourselves. And those guys were able to go see Empire Strikes Back fresh and not be spoiled. I love spoilers. I love being spoiled. This, hey, I didn't even read who this is from. Forgive me. This is A.B. Ayer, formerly Anonymous. A.B. Ayer. A.B. Ayer, okay? He sent this. A.B., I'm just going to call you A.B. That's true. Guys, thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. I hope that your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self are exactly where they need to be. Joy and I got out. I told you our house is being demoed. She goes out and lives her life. I isolate in my office and draw all day. And I was ready to go out last night. I was ready to kind of go out and be amongst people. So we went and got food. We went to the brand new bookstore. Then on our way home, Joy is not a fan of this chain, and I haven't partook in a long time. The bottom line, going to the dinner and both of us getting big, juicy burgers was so much fun. And stuffing our face with fries and drowning them in ketchup and mustard. Then we went to the new bookstore, and we were so impressed. We haven't had a bookstore in about a decade since Borders shut down. Brea has not had a bookstore. Barnes & Noble is in Fullerton. Barnes & Noble was in Santa Ana. It got shut down due to a fire. There's only like 3 big sell bookstores, and they're all about 10 miles away. Not even like the little mom and pop bookstores. Those don't exist anymore. So Barnes & Noble opened a brand new, very big location in Brea. We went to see it. It was a couple days after the grand opening. But on the way home, I pulled into Wendy's, got to the drive-thru. She goes, what are you doing? Where at dinner? I go, I'm getting a Frosty. They have a Snickerdoodle Frosty. Joy looked up her nose. Oh, can't believe you're getting that. Believe it. Went up, got a medium snickerdoodle frosty. I drove into a adjoining parking lot and I said, babe, this is how we do Friday nights out. She laughed. I started eating. She goes, hey, maybe I could have a bite of that. Oh, somebody wants my snickerdoodle frosty. Of course I let her. She took a couple of generous bites and proclaimed that was delicious. This is so delicious. This is so tasty. I said, babe, let's share it. Come on. She's like, you'd share the whole thing with me? Of course I would. We drove the 10 minutes home, kind of gently passing it back and forth until the medium snickerdoodle disappeared. My wife and I, we drove in, we walked into the house and she goes, that was a fun night. I'm like, it's the snickerdoodle. We put the cherry on top. Put the cherry on top. Guys, take time, go out with your friends, go out, have a night out, break the monotony of whatever you're doing, have personal interaction, be around people, surround yourself with love, give love in return. Guys, we care about you and what's going on. I'm thrilled. It's November. Youngblood is out. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I hope you're alive. I hope you're healthy. If you're not alive, that's going to be interesting, right? So my hope is that you're alive and healthy. I am wishing you all the very best. Thank you for listening to me. I am rooting for you at all times. Keep your head up. Change your perspective. Get a fresh kind of get some fresh legs underneath you by mentally and emotionally kind of pivoting. And go out and get a great ice cream, get a smoothie, get whatever the equivalent is. I'm going to give you 2 bumps into this Blue Yeti. Mike, wishing you all the very best. Take care of yourself. I'm going to be back. We're not done yet. Right there. Pick me up. We will most definitely, absolutely, inevitably, we will talk again real soon.